Hey y'all, I'm Marty Connell. These are my musings. Let's get rolling. My first story starts off with a question to you. Do you have friends, family members, co-workers who just don't understand why you game so much? They ask, how can you spend so many hours gaming? Well, now you can answer with science. Studies have shown that playing games can reduce the risk of dementia as you get older. Now, I'll go ahead and stop here. Go ahead and come up with your little cute jokes and comments that you want to put down below about me getting older. That's fine. You'll eventually get there too. The new study published in February 2018 in JAMA Psychiatry looked at more than 15,500 people over the age of 65 that lived in Hong Kong. At the beginning of the study, nobody had dementia. And after 5 years, they came back and looked at them and found that 1,300 of them had developed it. But they found that those people who were involved in activities such as board games actually reduced their risk of getting dementia. There were less of them that got dementia over time as opposed to those who didn't play board games. But that's not the only study. In 2013, a French study showed the risk of dementia was 15% lower in board game players than in non-players. But that's not all. There was another study in 2003 in the New England Journal of Medicine that said participation in leisure activities, and the study listed leisure activities such as playing board games, reading, playing a musical instrument, is associated with a reduced risk of dementia even after the adjustment for baseline cognitive status and after the exclusion of subjects with possible preclinical dementia. There you go. 3 studies that show playing board games can actually reduce the risk of dementia as you get older. So the next time somebody asks you, why do you play so many board games? You can reference these studies and say, hey, look, the more board games I play, the less chance that I forgot what I was going to say. Have you ever noticed in the past that sometimes a theme gets really popular all of a sudden over a short period of time? Remember a few years ago when it was all about Vikings Theme? We had Blood Rage and Champions of Midgard and Raiders of the North Sea and Jorvak and Jarl. It was like all of a sudden, Vikings themes everywhere. Well, if that's the case, this is the year of Mech Games. One of the first ones I saw announced was the return of a game from the past from Privateer Press called Monsterpocalypse. Now, if you've never heard of this game, the best way I can describe it is if you were to take the movie Pacific Rim and make a board game out of it, that's it. The game consists of kaiju, both monsters and these huge mechanical robots that you deploy into a city, and then they fight each other, and they have little minions that they control, and there's destructible buildings. And I have a fond memory of Monsterpocalypse. The first year I went to Gen Con was 2010. I have 3 sons who were very much into Transformers and the Lego Bionicles, so they were into the mechs, the robot type things. When we went over to the Privateer Press booth and they saw Monsterpocalypse, they were in. We bought a starter set, we brought it home, started playing. Now the old version, you got the miniatures and they were pre-painted, and they actually came in blind booster boxes. So you would buy a box, not have any clue what was inside, and then you built your army from there. What they've done now with the re-release is now it's going to be like a regular miniatures game. You got to put the miniature together, you have to paint it, there's no blind boosters anymore, and so it's going to feel more like a miniatures game than more, say, a collectible game. And that game's going to be coming out this August at Gen Con, and I really can't wait to check it out. Now, Monsterpocalypse was released in 2008. Another Titans game that's going to be re-released is from Games Workshop, which is Adeptus Titanicus, which was originally released in 1998. Now, this is a game based in the Warhammer 40k universe. And in this, you're going to be controlling Titans, and you're going to be deploying them to a city to fight against somebody else. So much like Monsterpocalypse, you're going to have buildings laid around the table, and you're going to be fighting to destroy your opponent. Now, they haven't said much about that one. It's just been teased recently, but it will be coming out later this summer. You want to make sure that you follow them on their website at warhammercommunity.com, or just go to their Games Workshop website. And yet another game that's even older than Adeptus Titanicus is BattleTech, which came out in 1985. Catalyst Game Labs has announced they're going to come out with BattleTech Beginner Box. This is a way to also get into their mech system. They're going to have a simple way for you to get into the game. With these, you got little cardboard standees that you can learn the mechanics of the game, and then you can graduate to actually getting the models and playing the game that way. So there's 3 Titan games, but guess what? If you're not interested in playing a miniatures game, but you want that feel of a Titans game, Well, I got another game just for you. This is from Arcane Wonders, and it's called Critical Mass. This is a card-based system where each of you are controlling a mech, and you have a dashboard in front of you where you can install weapons and upgrade weapons, and again, the goal is to destroy your opponent. All those games are going to be coming out later this summer. If you have any interest in any of those, make sure to check out the publisher's website for more information. A few episodes ago, I talked about Avengers Infinity War, how big the movie was, and how many records that it broke. Well, just recently, another big movie came to the theaters, and that's Solo, a Star Wars movie, which, as you probably know, is a movie based on young Han Solo. Over its first weekend, it actually had pretty good numbers. It made over $84 million, and as of this recording, it's over $120 million. In fact, when we compare it to other movies that have been released this year, it's already number 6 overall in the US box office. And as I record in this second weekend, it's probably going to exceed that and move into the number 5 spot. So that's pretty darn good. But as you've probably seen, a lot of people are saying that this movie is a flop. How can that be? We're talking about the number 5 movie overall so far. Well, to dig into that, we're going to have to zoom out a little bit and get a little bit bigger picture. Now, when Force Awakens came out, it made $248 million its opening weekend in the US. When The Last Jedi came out, it made $220 million in its opening weekend in the US. Now, those were the main trilogy movies, you know, like the Skywalker trilogy movies that we're used to, episodes 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, and 3, episode 7 and 8. So it's probably better to compare this movie against another Star Wars standalone movie, as it is a standalone movie, and that movie would be Rogue One. Now, Rogue One made $155 million in its opening weekend. So there, let's look at that movie as opposed to the other two. There's a website called boxofficepro.com that tries to project how much movies will make in their opening weekend. And a month before Solo opened, it had started its projection at $150 million. But something happened between then and later on in the month. For some reason, they kept moving its projection down and down each week, down to the point to where its final projection before the movie was started was a projection of $120 million in its opening weekend. As I said earlier, for opening weekend, it only made $84 million. So it was well below what they thought the projections were going to be for this movie. Of course, now everybody's trying to figure out why. And most people will think, well, it must be because it's a really bad movie. Well, that's not the case. On Rotten Tomatoes, critics have given it a 71, which is a very good score. And the audience has ranked it 64% as a movie that they like. And CineScore, which asked movie viewers what they think of the movie after it was over, they rated it an A-. So it was a pretty well accepted, decent movie. So it's not because it was necessarily bad. So then other people started thinking, well, maybe there's a little bit of a Star Wars fatigue. And that might be it, because it was just this past Christmas when Last Jedi was released. Now, that movie was very divisive. You seem to have people that really loved it and people that really hated it. And maybe they're still trying to get over that, and people are like, you know what? I just saw a Star Wars movie. I'm kind of used to them coming out at Christmas time now, which the past 3 movies has, and it's like, it's just a little too soon. So there might be a little bit of that. Now, it could also be that there were 2 huge movies released before that. Infinity War came out, then Deadpool 2, then this one. Maybe people were just kind of tired of going to the movie. Another thing is that this movie had a lot of problems over its development. It changed directors a few times, had some issues with writers. So maybe people were reading into this thinking, you know what, maybe it's not going to be that good, and they decided to stay home and maybe wait and see it later. And in probably all honesty, is probably a lot of those things mixed together, which caused people just to stay home and not go see it. Now, a real telltale sign will be the second weekend, which is the weekend that I'm recording this, and seeing how much it drops in the box office sales. Typically, movies will drop around 50% from their opening weekend. Now, if this movie does that, okay, then maybe it'll have a chance to rebound, or maybe do a little bit better than that. But if it happens to drop in the upper 50s, close to 60%, and maybe make less than $33 million, that's not good. And that means that rebound may not be there. And this is a perfect time for a rebound, because there's no other big movies coming out right now until Jurassic World in another week. So everything I've just said is just 100% facts and numbers and theories and everything. So here's my opinion. Do I think Solo was a flop? Well, I saw it opening weekend, and I enjoyed it. I was expecting kind of an action popcorn flick, and that's exactly what it was. I'm glad I went and saw it opening weekend. I did not think it was a waste of money, had a good time. My family enjoyed it. However, when somebody asked if I think a movie is a flop, to me, a flop isn't necessarily a movie that's bad. I have other names and terms and words that I use for bad movies. When I think of the word flop, I think, did it perform as expected at the box office? And with this one, it did not. And so in my opinion, I do think it was a flop at the box office. We're talking this movie was projected to 150 million, and then they kept dropping the projection to 120, but it made 36 million less than that. Another thing that hurt it too is its overseas box office. It only made 68 million overseas in its opening weekend, and that was really low for a Star Wars movie. Now, if you kind of read some of the rumblings that's going on at Lucasfilms right now, it looks like they may start to change some of the people at the top, because Last Jedi was not received very well. This movie hasn't done well at the box office, so they may say maybe we need to change a few people here and there to make sure that we can rebound from this. Now, the good thing is that we don't have another Star Wars movie for another year and a half. So by then, people will be excited to see Star Wars again. But they have just greenlit another standalone movie, Boba Fett. Guaranteed that they'll be looking very closely at this one and make sure that it performs well and it gets marketed well and everything, so that it won't be the same catastrophe that I really think Solo has been so far. But again, that's my opinion. I want to know what you think. Do you think it was a flop? And regardless whether you think it was a flop, it did underperform, so why do you think it didn't do as well as expected? Let me know in the comments. And now for this episode's interesting fact. The last McDonald's closed in Iceland over 8 years ago, and one of the last burgers sold there is now on display on a webcam in a hotel in Iceland. The disturbing part is that hamburger hasn't changed at all in 8 years. And even more disturbing part is I've eaten a few McDonald's hamburgers in my days. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you would like to follow us on social media, you can find all the links in the description below. And if you would like to check out our latest podcast, you can do so at Roll Dice Take Names, or it's posted here on YouTube. As always, I've been Marty Connell. These were my musings, and I'm out.